thank you for joining us again today. We're joined by Marta. Marta is a finance professional. She's also the host of the Invisible to Visible podcast. And we're very grateful to have you here today.
Great to be here. Thanks very much for having me.
Thanks very much, Marta. So this episode was brought to you by Top Drawer Talent, the supply chain and procurement recruitment specialist. Here we go.
There you go.
There we go.
Get it out.
Too well, but thanks very much, Marta. So today we're going to discuss, I suppose, the career path into the financial kind of industry and how you got to where you are now at the moment. And yeah, we'll just
Brilliant.
take it from
Looking
there.
forward to it.
Yeah.
So you've had an extensive career in finance. Where did it begin?
Do you know what? I've actually never, when I was in like secondary school, anything like that, I never thought about accountancy.
Yeah.
Like, my story is slightly different because I did my Leaving Cert in Poland. I was 18 and I came here with absolutely no English.
Okay.
So that was great fun. So I took about 1 year break to study a bit of English, which I thought my English got better. And I'm looking back, it's like, no, it wasn't really. But I could communicate somehow. And I went to college and I didn't really understand how to apply and for college in Ireland, like how do you score the points, and also my Leaving Cert has been translated in some sort of way I didn't understand of it. I applied for a course in hospitality, wasn't for me at all, and then one of the modules in that course was accountancy, and I really liked it, and it was like I just need to look into a little bit more. So I did a postgrad in accountancy. In DIT as well. I think DIT changed the name now, but it used to
University
Yeah.
Dublin,
Yeah, so it was DIT at that time. And again, going completely naive into it, didn't even know what chartered accountancy meant or how do you get the qualification. I just thought, okay, that's it. I'm an accountant now. So then they educated me. No, there's another 3 years for you to study. So that's how it started. But I really liked it. And the way it works in accountancy, let me know if I'm going too fast with
you're
it,
fine.
but the way it works is you need to get your training practice or training job, or you can do it by yourself, but the most common route is to find a training practice or so a job that you will sign a trainee contract
So it's
with.
kind of like an internship, would it be?
Yeah, it is really 3 years because one of the rules for ACCA or ACA, which is ACCA is Association of Chartered Certified Accountants and ACA is Association of Chartered Accountants, I think. And one of the rules is that you have to have 3 years experience
Before you can sit the ACCAs.
before you get qualified. So
Okay.
you're doing the ACCA exams
Yeah.
while you're doing your training. At the end of it, it should take you about 3 years to do it. And then the end of it, you get your exams, you get signed off by your employer,
Okay.
and then you get your diploma, your qualification.
It's like an apprenticeship.
It
basically.
really
But I know they
is.
don't say it's an apprenticeship, but the structure and the format of it is apprenticeship. So it's just for me, because I'm very I'm alien to the world of finance. You went and you done your postgrad in accountancy, was it?
Yes.
And then so just for anyone that's listening or watching that want to get into it, they third level education in accountancy or with accountancy involved, and then you go and find an employer that will sponsor you for these ACAs or ACCAs.
Correct. Yes. Now, you don't have to get the college. You can just go straight to an employer.
Yeah.
What college gives you, it gives you a few exemptions from the exams.
Perfect.
And you also get a bit of a college life, which everyone probably would like.
Yeah.
So most people would go to college, get a few exemptions, and then do the rest of the exams through ACCA with the employer. But you don't have to. A few people just go straight away and have to do all of the exams through ACCA.
Is that highlighted when you were in college about the next step to go to an employer and to get your ACCAs when you were in college? Was that the pathway to get where you wanted to be?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think pretty much everyone who done the postgrad, they either already had an employer and the employer already sponsored the postgrad for them.
Understand.
Because it gives you exemptions as well.
Yeah.
Or everyone meant to follow that route. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really
that's
really common.
Yeah.
If you want really progress within the finance world, you do need the ACCA, ACA, or taxation exams, whatever is that you're interested in.
Whatever professional body, yeah.
Absolutely, but you do have to have that certification for sure.
So then you went from college into the employer. Did you feel like the college path helped you a little bit better while you were when you went into employment? Then did you have a bit more of knowledge of the world of finance?
I think it's like with every other job. You think you know, and then you start
And then you don't know.
start employment, and you look at the books, the real scenarios, and you're like, what am I supposed to do here? Can somebody help? So I think it's like with everything. You do think you know, but I think the reason for the 3 years with an employer, that the employer has to sign you off on it, it's because accountancy is a skill, like apprenticeship, like you need to just learn it.
Yeah.
You can't, there's no way of fast forwarding this. If you don't do the 3 years, if you don't work through certain scenarios, if you don't work through, different customers within different industries, you're just not going to know in the future. So I think there is the thought behind the 3 years is that it's really a skill that you need to learn. And as much you can learn the theory, everything comes in the practice. I remember the moment when I sat down in the office. I remember when exactly where my desk was. And I remember sitting, and I remember the debits and credits clicking in my head. And I was like, oh, right, that's what it is. And I just literally remember this clicking with me.
Light bulb moment.
Exactly. Because when you're in college, you kind of see like a little bit, like a small scenarios. When you're working in the practice and preparing the full financial statements, like you have to do everything has to balance, and it's just, you kind of see that movement and it just clicks with you. I think everyone has that. I just remember that moment because I was so proud of myself.
Yeah. So then you went in, you went from college into your job in the 3 years. How was that 3 years for you? And then what was your path after that?
So I'm a huge believer in finding the right workplace, and I look until I find. So I was so lucky with the training practice I was in. There is a little bit, some people love their experience of training, and some people can't wait for it to finish so they can move. They kind of, for them, the training is just like a tick a box exercise to get to the goal, if that makes sense, because they don't really enjoy it. It's hard work. It could be longer hours, could be, really on great money as a trainee. It's normal. And then, you're doing your exams in the evenings and weekends. So a lot of people are kind of trying to, nearly waiting until he finishes.
Yeah.
I loved what I was training. I absolutely loved that practice.
Okay.
And I had a great experience. It was small practice. It was by choice. That's where I kind of wanted to do my training, and I loved it. I've learned a lot, but I always knew that I wanted to move to industry.
Okay.
So when you work in the practice,
It's multiple different clients, is that right?
that's exactly what it is. You're kind of doing audits and financial statements for a lot of companies, either annual audits or like a bookkeeping services for smaller companies.
Yeah.
But the job itself is not the job you're doing. It's like you're working for the client, the multiple clients.
Yeah.
When you move to industry, you're like becoming in-house accountant, and you're just working for the company that you're working in, and could be in any industry. So I always knew I wanted to move to industry, and lots of accountants are doing it. But if my choice was to stay in a practice, I would for sure work in that one practice. It was great.
Did you find going into practice before you went into industry, you got a lot more exposure to different things before, or whereas if you had went into industry straight away, you probably wouldn't have got the same exposure? Or is it the same? Is it a much for much?
Well, you can do either. You don't have to train in practice. You can train in industry.
Yeah.
It is more common to train in practice because you do learn more, I think. In industry, especially, well, it depends where. In the bigger corporations, you just, for 3 years, you could be doing AP, or accounts payable, or accounts receivable. So you're not really getting the view of other parts of finance, like payroll or VAT or financial statements. While if you're in practice, you learn everything. So I would encourage anyone who thinks about a career to actually go to practice and do the 3 years training and practice. I think it benefits you a little bit more than working in industry. In saying, and there's loads of great accountants who did their training in industry and they're still doing great. So again, depends, like with everything. but I probably would advise the practice route and then moving into industry if you want. It's the most common route as well.
Yeah. And during those first kind of couple of years, are you on site then for the 5 days per week, or is there like a day off for exams or like lectures?
Oh yes, so that's another thing, the difference between practice and industry.
Yeah.
Practice, usually you get like a week off per exam,
Okay.
which is great, very needed. And and they pay for your exams. Industry, well, you definitely don't get a week. Well, there might be some places where you do, but I say if you get 2 days per exam, you're lucky. And then not always pay for it as well.
Okay.
So practice is designed for for that apprenticeship, if you want to call it apprenticeship. Probably not the way to call it, but it is really designed for it. While industry, you're probably just doing it on your own, if you like. So that would be another way of going into practice, is that extra support for the time off. I benefited from it hugely.
When you started getting into it, what was it for you that, you know, drew you to the industry, or what was it for you that went, this is what I love to do?
I just like numbers, and I like when things balance.
Okay. There's always an answer with numbers. There's never an answer with anything else.
That's the thing. It's like you need to like. I don't operate well in chaos.
Okay.
I don't. By nature, I don't like chaos. And I love my paperwork. And even at home, I'm very good with my paperwork. You know, I have my folders and I have my documents in each folder. So I think you need to be that kind of person that you enjoy to have like the folders and then the subfolders and everything is segregated by a year, and that makes me happy.
Yes.
And then you're doing the financial statement and everything balances, and then you're doing bank rec and it balances, and you're like, that's so nice.
I come from a hospitality background, so me and you are probably on the polar end, because I actually miss the chaos of a busy restaurant and the running around and putting out the fires, and then at the end of a night when the shift is done, sitting down and going. But I think your excitement would come from, as you said, having everything organized and then going down to the final number and going, yes.
Yeah, so, that's it. I think I just always enjoy that. So going back to my undergrad course, when that module of accountancy started, I was like, you know, there's numbers and that needs to balance. And my exam was like to make sure that the numbers at the end add up. And I really enjoyed that. And so I think that was the thing. You have to you need to like numbers, you need to like finance, you need to be interested in it, but you also need to be good at administration, I think. And kind of keeping everything around, like follow a system with the folders and everything that just kind of allows you to, you the person who knows the answer where everything is. You know, that's your job. So you need to have that a little bit that within you as well.
I'm thinking if there is any, say, people that are listening or watching that are considering it maybe a career change or leaving school and don't really know what would be out there for them, but if they have that innate sort of organizational skill and love the balances and the checks, you know, it could be an industry for them.
Yeah, and absolutely. Another point I was thinking when I was preparing for this podcast is, you know, when you're 18, you might not know what you want to do. And just because you picked a course doesn't mean that's going to be your end career, because that wasn't my case. I've changed. My postgrad was completely different to my undergrad. So I think there is a little bit, there's always a way around, and don't be afraid to change or slightly navigate through it until you find what you like. Because it's not a failure when you pick something and you just don't like it. I think a lot of, how can you know when you're 18 what you want? I think it's very hard to know. So just try something, see if you don't like it, change it, or maybe just pick something of a more general way that you can just maybe narrow it down at a later stage. Postgrads are great. I found the postgrad really, really good because it allowed me to switch. It was a very intense course and it was just designed to get you into this industry. It was designed to get people from courses that weren't accountancy or finance into this world. It was like the stepping stone. So I would really, anyone who might be doing undergrad again, there's my English coming through.
You said it in Polish.
I suppose that to consider that if they want to just look into postgrads, because there's plenty of them and they're really good stepping stones.
Yeah. Would you find it harder if you didn't have like the degree to kind of get your foot in the door for like some kind of an accountancy apprenticeship, or do you already have to have the degree behind you?
I think a lot of, when it comes to interview, are you talking about the interviews for the first job? Is it?
Let's say someone didn't have a degree, and they were like mature student, could they go straight away and do the postgrad?
I think they could,
or
yeah.
as a mature student,
I'm
like
not-
specialise specifically like in accountancy, or does a degree for that, right?
I'm not sure. I know, obviously, I work for a National College of Ireland, and I know there's a
Just going to
system
the
called RPEL, which is a recognised of prior learning, which means if you're in an industry for so long, you don't need a degree to get into some of these courses.
Yes.
But for the accountancy, I'm not sure. It's a little bit different. We run 2 apprenticeships in National College of Ireland, a higher certificate in financial services, kind of corporate banking, and then we do a higher diploma in data analytics, whereas the accountancy is a bit standalone because there's a lot more niche subjects in accountancy, and then you have to go through the ACA to be.
Yeah.
Is it qualified then when you get your ACA?
If you get your ACCA or ACA, then you qualify chartered accountant. Yeah. Like I know a good few not mature students, but like possibly somebody who started, have been working in this world, in this role for a while, maybe in a bookkeeper role or in finance, but never really qualified, but maybe qualified by experience. Just, some people just get into certain jobs and they carry on, and then they started to do the accounts at the age of 35 or 40. That's all okay. You can apply for the ACCA by yourself, pay it by yourself.
Okay.
Anyone can apply for it. And it's really the exams, there are about 14 exams. When you start it, it really gives you the introduction. So it is designed to kind of start from the very basics.
Yeah.
What the postgrad gives you, it gives you exemptions from the first few exams. So you're only doing the advanced exams through the institute, through the ACCA
Okay, I
institutes,
get you.
if you
But
like.
then another way, if you didn't have the degree, would be if you got a job as a bookkeeper, then you could progress that way through
Absolutely,
experience.
yeah.
Okay. Brilliant.
I think, when you're applying for the training contract, it's really your personality and how much you want the job and how much you can prove that you'll just try your best. Because I think anyone who is hiring knows that every single trainee coming in and never working as an accountant, they think they know, but they don't know.
Yeah.
As I said, I thought I knew, but I
Yeah.
didn't. So I think there's this mutual knowledge that, the personality matters more, because we all kind of starting and need to learn.
Yeah. So it's the personal trainable. But then, what was your first job title then when you got your first job in accountancy?
So the first was a trainee accountant.
Trainee accountant,
Then in practice, probably you then move into accountant or senior accountant. There could be many titles, but that could be probably the most common one. And then when you moving into industry, you kind of, again, accountant, senior accountant, then you probably go into financial controller, head of finance, CFO. They're the kind of main steps. There could be different names for it, but they're kind of main steps, if you like.
And those names, because we were speaking previously, so like I have an idea of accountancy, but then when I see like financial controller, is there any differences or challenges in like going from, say, senior accountant in then to this new role of a financial controller or financial manager? Is it more responsibility because you're in industry and you have more to do, or?
I suppose there's just more like you controlling what comes out of the finance, if you know what I mean. So you just have more responsibility of making sure that everything runs smoothly.
Okay.
As an accountant, you possibly could have, again, different jobs, different departments designed completely differently. But generally speaking, accountant gets their part of the books they need to look after. Financial controller would be, or finance manager would be overseeing it. So they would be might not be doing the job, but they just would be making sure that everything is looked after, so that contractors and suppliers are being paid, debtors are invoiced, and then the debt is collected, that bank is reconciled. They might not necessarily be doing that job, but it's their responsibility to make sure that it's done. So there's a lot of probably team management.
I was going to say people management.
Yeah.
So you'd be over a team, and then you, in that title, you'd be responsible for the performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you find going into those roles? Did you have any people management before?
So my first people management role, maybe I'll take a step back because it'll be easier to explain.
Yeah.
When I went into industry, I've got one job. My first job post practice in the industry was in IT sector.
Yeah.
It was nice role, kind of great to get my foot into industry as well.
Yeah.
And then after about a year and a half, I decided to change again, and I moved into this company again in IT sector, and that was my biggest to date. My best, I had loads of great experiences,
Yeah.
but in terms of career progression,
Yeah.
that
Okay.
was my
Growth.
best experience, because that's where I progressed the most.
Yeah.
And that's where I got first experience of managing team, which it's great when you have great people, and you often have great people, but I think, often in every single industry, you're good at what you do, you're good technically, so you're getting promoted to be a manager. And managing team is a skill as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
some people are naturally good at it, some people are not, and some days are better at it than others.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not always
Yeah.
all great and easy. I was really lucky with the team I had. In saying it is a skill I had to learn, because you're the one responsible, but yet somebody called in sick and they can't come in, but then you're getting stressed. So it's sometimes really like, how do you manage your stress with the responsibility more than anything else?
Right.
And following up, how did you manage your stress?
Yeah.
I was working for a great company. I was working for a great company where there was a general understanding that people get sick and people sometimes need to take time off because there is a crisis in crash. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So it was a great company, and I worked with actually 3 young moms. At some point, there were 4 of us in a team, and we were all young moms. When I say young, like it was like a very like junior infants would be the oldest kid. So in terms of crashes and kids getting sick and like stomach bugs, it was non-stop. But the one thing I say about young moms is, you're just so well organized.
Yeah.
They always get everything done. So I'm great friends with them still. So was really lucky with it. But the reason why, I talk a lot, don't I?
No, you're glad to keep going.
No, this is what we want.
Yeah.
We're not really supposed to be talking that much. So
The table
you're
has turned. You're being gone from the interviewer now to being interviewed.
How's it on that side, Marta?
But the reason why this particular place was the place where I progressed the most is because one of the hardest steps to take is go from that role of finance manager / financial controller to head of finance,
Yeah.
because it's the kind of not the last step you're taking, but it's probably the step like between accountant, senior accountant, the step might be that kind of, and then like
Yeah.
again, but then to take that step, it nearly takes, you need to be in the right place, get the right team, and it's not that easy. Sometimes things are outside your control.
Yeah.
So what happened with this particular job, the lady that was there for, I'm gonna say 16 years.
Oh, okay.
And you never think the person like that will leave.
Yeah, will leave, yeah.
She did, and she pointed at me, and I took over from her. So I got offered the role of, my title was financial controller, but it was a head of finance role. And that was the kind of the biggest step I took.
Yeah.
And thinking about the opportunities, like, you need to grab them.
Yeah.
You just need to grab them when they're there. And to think that I don't know what I was doubting myself. Oh, should I take it? Should I not take it? But if I didn't take it, I would be the most stupid person in the world. Like, it was the best thing that ever happened to me professionally.
Did you have a close relationship with that lady that you were speaking to? Like, when you look back, was there like signs of mentorship, and did she take you under the wing, or like, what the main question I wanted to ask was about having a peer in your job, especially a woman of 16 years tenure in that role. Like, it's great to come across someone like a gem that you can then just sponge off, and then you can not saying turn into, but you can learn so much. What was the relationship like with you and her at that time?
Yeah, I think I've learned a lot from her.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot from finance perspective, and she ran the company so well. In terms of, so when I was taking over the books, everything was so well organized already. It was
That
like
was
taking over, but there was
easy.
nothing that I had to do, just literally pretty much carry on. But what I've learned a lot from her was probably the softer skills that are
Okay.
more important.
Then
Like
hard
you
tech.
get to a point where you have your technical knowledge and technical skills, but if you don't have the soft skills, it's
be a lot
and
harder.
again, you need to learn them. Like, not some people might probably are kind of better than worse than others, but there is certain level of kind of learning them and observing other people, and I think that's what a lot I've learned from her were the soft skills and how she managed the team. It was a lot observing that, and I like from the mentorship, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I've learned a lot from her, and she kind of guided me through a lot of more difficult scenarios as well.
Yeah.
So definitely I own her a lot. Yeah.
Would she have ever like sat down with you and like laid out a career map for you, or was it just kind of right place, right time?
No, it was probably right place, right time. In that particular case, I didn't have in my mind that that's what I wanted to do. I probably, like, it was landed one day. She said to me, "Let's go for lunch," and I said, "Oh, that's
man.
nice, great."
Yes.
Let's go.
And then she said it, and I was like,
Shocked.
I was really, really shocked, because I only had my first boy, my first son, I was just back from maternity leave, so
Okay,
it was a little bit of, can I do it as well with a small child? But it was her that told me, listen, they're all very family friendly. I've raised my kids while working here. You don't have to worry about anything. And I think that's a great comfort as well.
When you were deciding to move from practice in the industry,
Yeah.
did you decide that it was tech that you wanted to work in, or did the industry matter? You just wanted to kind of get into industry?
I wanted to get into industry.
It didn't matter whether it
it
was
didn't
tech
matter.
or-
No, I didn't. It didn't matter. Just tech came to me. And then the second job was in a tech as well. Then I moved into employee engagement sector. And there is a new opportunity as well in September. It's in property management as well. So I probably took a conscious decision to try different industries as well. Just to see, like, debits
How
are
it-
debits and credits are credits. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
doesn't change.
it does-
But just
numbers
from
are
experience
numbers.
perspective,
Yeah.
I think it's, if you work I was afraid when I was kind of leaving the second tech job, I was afraid if I find the tech again, that's me. I'll just a tech accountant, if that makes sense. I was
Yeah.
afraid to kind of get that label.
So I actually have a friend who so different background, went and done a master's in Irish, then seen the opportunity in practice, and it came out of nowhere. But they were sponsoring her for her ACCAs, and just a total switch for her in her career. But I could see it fitted her because she's very meticulous, very on time, very organized. Just that's her brain. Then she moved from practice into industry. She's in industry now 3 or 4 years. And if you could give her some advice, because I don't know really, I don't know what's ahead for her, but if you were to give someone like that that's in industry 3 or 4 years after coming from practice, a bit of advice on maybe what the next 5 years looks like, or any advice on what you should start thinking about maybe to grow your portfolio in that sense, what would you say to those people?
I'd say depends what she wants to do as
Yeah.
well. It's hard to advise somebody when you don't know what somebody wants, because climbing the ladder is also not for everyone.
Yeah,
And
not
it's
everybody
okay
wants
to
to
say that you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
One of the advice, and I don't know whether that's exactly what you're looking for in terms of, because I'm not really even approaching the question from a technical perspective, but I think one of the things that women especially are not really good at, and they don't appreciate the value of, and then they're paying the price of it later on, is the lack of networking at the early stage.
Okay.
Network.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not in a strategic way. Well, it can be as strategic as you want.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to follow up with people, send them a message if you worked with a manager that you really, really liked, or if you work with somebody you really, really like and they left or you left, send them a message on
check in.
LinkedIn or check in. Do you want to meet for coffee? Just hope you're well. Or, oh, just want to let you know I got this promotion. Thanks very much for your time when we were working together. Anything like that. It's, I think, kind of when you get the connections, you kind of get presented with more opportunities later on. People think of you. And I think that's one of the things that women often think, that if I just stay quiet and I do my job, I'll be okay. I was like, you will be okay, but why won't you just try to network a little bit more? And also what I would say to her is like, figure out what you want. Figure out what you want, because there's plenty of opportunities out there. And write it down, make a plan and go for it. Like if you just, it's good to have a plan in the head, but just know what that plan is and just make sure that that plan is your plan and not what you think people are expecting of you and what you think you should be doing.
Okay. What's the decision-making process then, right, you would have made when you were deciding to leave each of your positions? Like, was it career progression that you wanted to see, or was it just like different opportunities or insight into different industries then as well?
I think a bit of everything. Sometimes, you're in a workplace and you're enjoying it, but you don't feel it. Does that make sense?
When you just...
The spark leaves you.
A little bit. Like, I'm here. I like it. I think we spend so much time on work. You need to like it. You need to really, really, really go to the work happy. I never can understand when somebody complains about their work and they don't do anything about it. Like, I understand sometimes you can, sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes, you might be earning a lot of money and you need the money, so you're deciding to stay there for the money. But or it could be close by home, or they allow you to work remotely and that's what you're after. But if you don't feel like you are 100% happy and you want to be 100% happy, just try something else. Not every industry is for you, not every team is for you, and it's okay to say it. It's not a failure, it's not in any shape or form. Just try something new. So that would be my thing. It's probably the feel more than anything else. It's hard to explain.
It's like when you get comfortable, and it's just, there's no challenge. And I personally like challenges. I like solving problems, not as much as you do, but it's like when you get comfortable in a position, not that the spark leaves you, but like you want to the next challenge. You want to feel a little bit on your toes all the time.
And accountancy could be quite monotonous. Is that the word? Because you do everything. Like with your month end, it's like every single month is the same thing. And then there's the VAT return every 2 months, and there is payroll every month. So you're right. If there is if you are kind of, it's easy to, I don't want to use get bored phrase, but you're kind of getting into this.
Yeah, it's a process.
Yeah,
it's a weekly and monthly process. It's kind of like recruitment, I would say.
Some people like it. Some people are just, if there is no progression, visibility of any progression within that company, they might choose to leave. So there's a little bit in that in finance. You might want to like the kind of be a creature of habit in Fiona Finance.
Would seeing like growth in the company as well be a big factor? Like if the company wasn't growing or if the company was stagnant, would that be a factor for you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like the company is growing, there's more opportunities for yourself. The industry needs to be exciting as well, and the industry itself needs to be growing. So that's definitely that. And I like to work for companies where they align with my values of female leaders as well, and not necessarily me, but generally there is equality there, and a lot of like it's nearly 50-50. How to phrase it better? Probably there's many ways of phrase it better. I can't remember.
I wanted to pick up on something you said earlier on, and it's probably rich coming from me as a man. But when you came back from maternity and your mentor or your boss was leaving, and the only doubt in your mind about taking this role was because you just came back from maternity. You had 2 young kids, but what eased you was that lady saying it's okay, they're family friendly. And even though it is a good compliment or a good thing to see, it's also still not great to hear, shouldn't every company be family friendly? I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I had one child at that time.
Oh,
Yeah, but it is really on your mind, because
Yeah,
I
I'd say so,
think when you really high up in finance or in any role, but finance would be really heavy on it.
yeah.
The hours could be mental, and there is zero balance. And I think that could be a reason why we see at the very, very, very top more men than women, because the childcare defaults to a woman, and this is the case. We see a lot of
Yeah.
more involvement from men right now. Absolutely, this shift in the right direction, but we for sure not there yet. And it is like, thinking about it, this was the thing that came to my mind, because I wanted to be fair. I really liked that company. I really liked that lady, but I also really, really liked and admired the two owners of that company. So I wanted to be fair to them.
Yeah.
But if I was a man, would I ask that question? I don't think so.
or would they say it's family friendly to the man?
Yeah,
There's-
it wouldn't matter if it wouldn't even be a thought. I don't think in someone's head if it was a man.
I
think
did, this is the example I give to everyone. It just, for me, gives the best kind of example is the best example to kind of say the way women think and the way men think. So as I said earlier, there was 3 moms with me on the finance team,
Yeah,
and it was around Christmas time, so Christmas party was coming, and I said, so we all going on the Christmas party. I love work Christmas party. And then and literally they all said, oh yeah, I need to just check whether what to do with the kids, or like, I need to see whether my mom can take the kids, or I need to see whether whatever their husband's name. And I'm like, I don't know a man who wouldn't say yes, because he just the fault goes to women, like,
yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think we automatically take that on ourselves, that I need to organize the childcare. If my partner is not there available to stay at home, I need to organize the childcare. While I think there was the scenario the other way around, is like, if I was a man, I would be like, if I not there, if my wife is not, or my partner is not there to mind to stay with the child, well, she needs to organize the childcare. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So I think there's a little bit of that,
Yeah.
that default. And I just, that example of that Christmas party really, really stuck with me.
It's
Do you
good
see a
example.
change there is obviously small changes happening. I think it'll probably take a couple of years. I think it's just an embedded society psyche that we have. I think there are some great men out there as well that, there is, but it's just not there yet.
We definitely see a shift in it. And like, the father of my 2 boys is 50-50. I would not be as successful, and I could not be working the way I'm working if he wasn't 50-50 with me on the childcare. I wouldn't be. I know that. So there is a great shift. And I actually think there is a little bit, it works the other way, because if the woman goes to the employer and says, I need to finish at 3 or 4 o'clock because I need to bring the child to doctors, or I want to go on a 4 days basis, it's nearly okay. Like, not always we hear yes, but it's nearly like accepted that a woman asks those questions. But I don't know whether men are that comfortable, whether men are made feel comfortable to ask those questions. And I think this is the problem, that this is not expected from men, and so they're nearly like not afraid to ask the question, but it's just they might want to ask the question, they really want to be involved in the childcare, but the way the employer reacts to women requests versus they would react to men asking that question would be slightly different, I think.
If a man went and if a man went and asked that, say, look, I have to leave early to bring the child to the dentist, would the employer say, well, where's the wife?
When they would say,
mom?
like, I think
there is employers that would say that. Yeah. Oh, can your missus not take?
Yeah. Because it defaults back to the woman, I think.
Better not say to me.
Yeah.
But like, no, it's just, I think I would like to actually defend men a little bit, because I know a lot of men who really, really want to be involved, but I think there is a little bit in it that they're not being made to feel that this is comfortable question to ask. And I think there's a little bit onus on employer to make sure that both genders are okay to ask those questions.
I think even
and,
narrative, like even if you just said, I have a family, not emergency, but there's a family thing that I must attend. That should be just asked without given without
Yeah.
question, or like catch up tomorrow. Like I think the narrative is moving away from the gender basis, but it's still it's just not there yet.
I actually done a full podcast on it with a man called Ian. I can't remember his name now. He's from UK and he works purely with men who are with dads who are trying to do that, who are trying to get more involved at home and work. So he's coaching them through that transition, and he's coaching them how to have that conversation with their employer. And he is kind of saying the stats are like, as I said, it's okay when a woman asks those questions. It's nearly kind of expected that she will come at some point and say this, but might not be like that in the other way. So
There's the Ireland's financial services plan for future plan, and within that plan there's the Women's in Finance Charter, specifically looking at the women in finance. And there was a report that came out yesterday, and it was just for the just as we're talking, it said looking at the charter signatories as a whole, female representation has grown at senior management level 37% to 41%, and that's in 2 years. Executive committee level 30% to 34%, CEO 22% to 26%, and board level 35 to 39%. So you're looking at about like a 2 to 4% increase at these senior levels of women in finance in Ireland over 2 years.
Yeah.
I know it's still marginal, I know it's still small, but
it's a progress.
It's a move in the right direction.
Exactly. I think this is kind of this could be due to like two factors. One being we are moving, the conversation is around this. You know, you hear that a lot now.
Yeah.
Employers are much more flexible right now. And men also get much more involved at home as well. So there is that flexibility. Also the remote work, which, you know, for the post-pandemic remote work helped a lot, or hybrid work. I'm not really, don't know whether we want to go that direction, but I'm not a huge fan of fully remote work. I like the hybrid model. I like the face-to-face conversation every so often.
Yeah.
But that did help, even if it's hybrid. You know, if you can set up that, you know, and the mother can travel 2 days and the father can travel to the office 2 days. You know, you can just make this work. And I think that's really contributed to those percentages going up.
I think the future of work in any industry, and especially with co-parenting or parenting or people at home, or even people caring for mothers and fathers at home, you know, I think the future of work with hybrid is only beneficial to everybody, and hopefully we'll see more representation at the table at a higher level.
Yeah,
A
absolutely.
lot of companies are still closed off to the hybrid and remote working, like they're not into it. But there's also a move towards a condensed week where you do 4 days work, and you know, you do your 40 hours in 4 days and then you're off.
It's the
got the 3-day
flexibility.
weekend,
What suits you, as long as you're there doing the core hours, whether you start at 8 or you start at 10, you get your work done. Like, it's the idea of being flexible. Because sometimes you have to bring the child to school. The school starts at 9. You can't move that. So you can, you know, whether you can start at 9:30, or maybe the other half is bringing the kids to school. So you start at 8 to finish early. So
I just think some industries as well, it's not always possible. Like if you're a builder or a plumber, you know, one of those labor intensive jobs, it's not possible because there's deadlines to be hit.
yeah.
So I think, like, in an ideal world, like, that is a great idea, but I don't know if it's always practical in some cases anyway.
Sure.
But
At least the options are there.
yeah, the options should be there. And I think people do need to be more flexible. I think there should be maybe some kind of law around that you get to choose. Or that you
But
can
there is a new law.
You can actively request remote working on.
Yeah, that's a new law that you can request the remote work. Isn't that the case?
That's right, yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you're a champion of EDI, equality, diversity and inclusion, and it's a big passion of yours in the workplace. When you don't want to say made that step up, but when you made that move into, say, head of finance, was there any responsibility, or did you have any, say, control over hiring trends within the company, or did you look at the stats or data of your previous companies and the representation, or what's it like right now in the finance world for the diversity and the equality?
Well, actually, I've worked with 3 moms, and now recently I worked with one lady as well, so we were 100% female. But in terms of the stats, I actually don't know, because I just go into and the interview is quite. I like to kind of sense that at the interview process where we are. I think we need to look. The finance is the department itself. There's always one head of the finance, and that's even female or male. I work for both. It's not that I've always worked for male. That's absolutely not true. I probably work for more female than male, but I think where the focus needs to be, it's more on the general level of the company. Do you know what I mean? Within the company, when you have, and that's where the new reporting that came in, not the equal pay, the gender pay gap. There you go. Which, what people think gender pay gap what it highlights is the difference between what women get paid and what men get paid. No, what it highlights is really how many female you have at the top and how many male you have at the top. If that makes sense. It doesn't really highlight, it does highlight the women earn less, but just because they are on the lower positions. That's what really highlights. And I think that's the general problem, is that we need to get more women at the top, and culture flows from the top. Do you know what I mean? So you need to have more women at the top, and that's what we should be focusing on.
Because I would have been one of those people, with the gender pay gap. I thought
That's equal pay.
Because in my head, gender pay gap, and they're saying it'll take 70 years, and in my head I'm like, just pay them the same. But
No,
it's not that.
it's not that.
The hierarchy of the business.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Hierarchy of the business. That's what the gender pay gap. But also now, and in a lot of tenders for the bigger organizations, in a lot of tenders, when you fill them in as a company, if you want to sell your product to somebody, one of the questions is around how many women do you have on your board? They're those questions. They're starting those questions. Or when you're trying to maybe sell your company, they're looking at that as well. So there is a shift in questions and how you should. It's just trying to change the mindset a little bit. Yeah.
Do you think though, right? Like, you should be put on the board, right, because you're a woman, right? Or do you think that you know, because they need to increase the numbers, or do you think you should get there by merit and not because of your gender, let's say? Because
I think the merit is already there.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you know, as we talked before,
is that because like maybe more women don't put themselves forward? Like, you had to be probably asked to go forward, whereas you know, if the position was advertised, you might not have applied. Or would you have applied if it had been advertised, and you know, you weren't invited out for lunch and told about the position coming up? Would you have applied with the position that you're in?
No, because I probably wouldn't believe in myself. Those people believed in me before I believed in myself.
Okay.
That was my case.
Yeah,
I was really lucky.
Yeah.
I think now, after having more exposure to senior leaders and talking a lot with a woman who would be within different industries, not necessarily accountancy, they might be within law or some other industries. I think one of the biggest problems that women are being challenged with when it comes to those really, really top jobs is hours and time involved. Like, and when I say, it doesn't mean necessarily that we don't want to put the hours in. It's about, if you constantly organize calls at 6 or 7 p.m., and I don't mean emergency. Emergencies happens everywhere, and there is somewhere, you know.
Yeah, they're unavoidable.
Yeah, they're unavoidable, and they happen all the time. And sometimes you just have to react. That's the reality of being in the leadership position. But if you're constantly having that, it is a company culture to nearly wear it as a badge of honor. I work until 11 p.m. last night. Like, you know, calls at 6 or 7 p.m. Women who usually would want to apply for the jobs, they usually have kids. Not every single woman have kids. No, some don't want to. Some there are different reasons. Not for this podcast, but you know, majority would, and I think that's the biggest blocker, is that what I do at 6 or 7 p.m. every day is I read bedtime stories and bath my kids. So I think that's the biggest blocker. Not that women don't want to, not that women don't have merit. It's just
trying to merge the two lifestyles into one to keep it consistent.
Yeah, and I think until that changes, that expectation, it's just a mindset change, I think, a little bit.
As you said, maybe, and you spoke about networking and people, and not even just to network for your own, but just to get stories and get experience from other people that have done the life cycle of this, and just to create that community and that conversation flowing of it's okay, or it might change your mindset, or might change like your next role. Like, look at the company's values and their mission statements, and do they align with yours? And kind of, I think we were only speaking about this last week, I think a lot of people are investigating more into the company themselves before they take on the job, to see what they're like.
Absolutely. I think the narrative is changing around the interview process. You are being interviewed as much as you interview the company.
Yes, definitely.
And that's definitely the case. Before you were like, yes, please give me a job,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful that I got
Yes.
it. Now I'm like, do I want to work here? So that definitely is the narrative. People are looking for more than just a pay. They just want their values to match and be happy. And they spend so much time in the work. And I know myself, I was the most successful in the two places when I was the happiest, but I wasn't the happiest because I was successful.
Yes.
I was just, we were just aligned, if that makes sense. So,
There was a goal maybe, or like a mission.
yeah,
to go
it's
towards.
just, yeah, it just worked. You know, the expectation of me was exactly what I thought the expectation should be of me, and we worked really, really well. I felt respected. I felt listened to. So absolutely.
And so, like, you're obviously busy. You've a tight schedule at home. You've a tight schedule in work, and you're a podcast host.
Yeah.
Talk just about Invisible to Visible. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah, what was the reason you started the podcast?
To make women more visible, I think.
Yeah.
I think having conversations is really, really important. And I'm not going to change anything. The podcast is not going to change any laws and legislations. But if people ask, I think it's a lot of it is about your confidence. A lot of it is about confidence to go to your employer, ask for pay rise, or confidence to ask difficult questions or stand up for yourself. So I think just, I do believe in a conversation, and like, especially empowering younger generation. I wish there was somebody kind of who would.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually quite lucky with how I landed with people believing in me. But like, you know, if we don't talk about it, nothing will change. Everything starts with conversation, and if there is enough people talking about something, some change will happen.
Yeah, we'll see change. Yeah.
And how did you find so you've been doing the podcast, is it a year, 2 years
A
now?
year.
Okay.
And, you know, from where you started to where you are now, as you said, that's given you confidence, but have you seen, not a massive shift in yourself, but have you seen that you're open to new things, or you're learning new information, or...
It's absolutely. Like, it was the biggest step outside my comfort zone ever, because English is not my first language. And, you know, to do that not in your first language is quite difficult. Also, I work in tech, but I don't really understand tech. So to set it up myself, it was really, really difficult. So I'm really proud that I've done it myself. Everything, it's me. But the biggest learning that I took from it is, just try it. Nobody dies when you do something wrong. Like, you're not that important, Marta. Do you know what I mean? Just do it and see what comes out of it. And I think the more you come out of comfort zone, the more you want to come out of comfort zone. So you kind of seeing that despite the fact that something didn't work out maybe the way you wanted, or something, you know, you might not see it as a perfect, but still it happened, is out there. And like, nobody died. Like, just move on to the next thing. Progress over perfection. Progress over perfection in this case. No one balancing books. That's perfection. But when you, like, you know, with other like things like that, just progress over perfection.
And you've got some really interesting conversations. I was listening to one today on the way in, and it was with a gent about imposter syndrome. And I'd spoken to Alison last week about this imposter syndrome. And from your conversation with him, you'd mentioned that you feel that the imposter syndrome is basically just about fear. So what's your view on it now, since you've had the conversation with him, and what would you tell someone that maybe would be in any position in work, in finance, a woman in business, that just feels maybe that she has that imposter syndrome?
I've heard a great phrase, turn fear into enthusiasm.
Okay.
Just, was that a phrase? Maybe that wasn't the phrase, but something along those lines.
It's a good line anyway.
Turn it, it's See, the way I actually start thinking about fear,
Yeah.
and it's what are you fearing?
It's a
Are you
fictional
fearing to
story.
fail, or are you fearing to fail in front of people? Okay, because I think that's a big one. So, if I was to take the people aspect out of it, and I could say to you, you can try this. Nobody will know whether you fail or not. Would you try it?
Yeah.
Yes, you would.
Yeah.
So then, if I tell you people don't really care about you that much, do you know what I mean? So go and try it. And I think people who show in the workplaces that they're not afraid to try new things, come up with new ideas, they're the most successful ones. Because realistically speaking, if you want to go into leadership position, you need to show that you're thinking outside the box and you are trying new things, and trying new things is kind of trying them despite failure. This is another great saying is like, nobody knows what they're doing. Some people, they're just doing it.
Yeah.
Do you know? So
That's a good one.
that's, I'm a queen of quotes. I love a good quote. I love a good quote.
The one I like is feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I just crap up
I'm
those
scared.
guys.
It's like the one, like, do you know, a parent talks to a child, like the child says, "But mommy, I'm scared," and mom's like, "Well, do it scared."
Yeah.
Do you know? Just do it scared. Just do it. And I think the fear is like something that when you do it despite feeling that fear, you realize that it was just in your head. And I think one of the biggest advice I would give, just take it step by step. You don't have to go all Wonder Woman at something. Just write it down into smaller steps, and all you have to worry about is this one step. I've done a massive project recently, let's call it a project recently, and it was very terrifying, life-changing. And I like that. I was so scared. Like really, really scared. And any time my mind went ahead of like the few steps, I was like, no, that's it. All you have to do this week is this one thing. Do not even think about anything else. And I'm just at the other end of it. And I've pretty much achieved impossible.
Amazing.
So I think that's one of the things you need to do. You need to break it into smaller steps and don't think about the end thing.
Don't think about the end goal.
Just do the one thing and see when that brings you.
Enjoy the journey.
Yeah, I'd be
Yeah.
kind of like, some people, are very, say, they enjoy looking at the end goal, where I'd be similar to yourself. I'd have to go, no, just do this first. That's all. Do this now.
Yeah.
I can't look at the end.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary to look at the end of it, because there's so many
'Cause your doubts
unknown.
come in, you can't
Yeah.
do that. You'll
Yeah.
fall at this hurdle. Whereas, as you said, just little baby steps.
That's it.
Then compiles into
Yeah.
the full story. So it's good advice.
Yeah, right. All right, look, moving on then, right, to the
Yeah.
recruitment side of your job, right? So when you're interviewing for somebody to kind of move into a finance role, or have you been involved in the recruitment process?
Yeah, I have.
What are the kind of main character traits you kind of like to look for in an interview, or would you look for?
Well, it depends what role you're recruiting
Okay,
for.
yeah.
If it's a junior role, you're more looking at the attitude itself.
Yeah.
You can look at the experience. Depends on what role you like. Experience is always welcomed.
Yeah.
Sometimes too much experience and too much doing certain things certain way prevents you from looking at the new way of doing things
Okay,
as well. So you need to be careful of that. But experience within accountancy, experience is quite big. If you are recruiting for a senior role, somebody needs to come from a similar background, knowing what they're doing, because you want them to hit the ground running. Personality is a big thing, how they approach a problem. It's whether they can work on their own, because like that, again, I can only speak about accountancy, but I would imagine is relevant to every other industry. We all working on our own. Like, I want you to raise your hand when you don't know. I'm here to help and answer any questions. But if you don't ask me a question, I'm assuming you know what you're doing and you're doing it. So there needs to be a good relationship you can develop with that person. I'm not a huge fan of becoming friends at work, very close friends at work, but you need to like to work with each other. So all these things.
Is there a process within the finance recruitment? Is there like different stages? Do you have like aptitude tests or little questions to see?
Depends on a company.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bigger
position.
companies, the steps would be, there'll be more steps. There could be a test as well. There could be technical tests, rarely though. Within smaller companies, it's usually 1 or 2 interviews. So yeah, depends on the size of the company, I'll say. Again, I'm not a huge fan of 10 rounds of interview.
No,
I don't think
You know, I
anybody
think
is.
two are max.
Yeah.
If you don't know, if you're not sure after 2, then you don't hire that person.
Yeah.
I personally think that. So I would be in favor of 2 max
2.
interviews. Yeah.
3 if the director or the CEO is
Yeah,
not
if
available.
they're- if they're
the
bigger
CEO is not
companies,
available,
yeah.
But 2 rounds max. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a client on the phone. He said he'd done 7 rounds of interviews. I said, look, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be able to work with you.
No,
I'm
I
not
don't think
putting a
anybody
candidate
would
through 7
stand.
rounds of
No, you
interviews.
couldn't.
No, you
Yeah.
can't be at
No.
that.
No.
Basically,
How long does it take then? Like it nearly takes 2 or 3
Yeah.
months.
But
Like
then you're going from meeting with Mary to John and then back to Mary and then Mary and John together, and it's just like there's
diluted. Sometimes it's the same conversation. As
Yeah.
well.
yeah,
It takes-
that's it. You meet new people and you repeat the same thing. You're
Yeah.
being asked the same questions at the interview. So yeah, to me, for like I know within 2 definitely I know whether you know we want to hire or not.
Would you know, like within the first kind of 5 minutes of the interview, if you're going to hire the person or at least make an offer, or does that depend?
I don't know. I'd rather like
try
the
hard.
good feeling is very important. I think.
Yeah.
I think good feeling is very very important. But I think we need to acknowledge that some people are just get very very nervous and you know give them a little bit of warming time and see
Yeah.
how they go how it goes. So yeah, I would be quite keen not to write somebody off after 5 minutes because they might be just nervous. And nerves need to be managed, but they're not necessarily. They might be showing that somebody really cares as well.
Yeah, it's a good sign.
So yeah, they're not necessarily a negative thing all the time. It depends how quickly they phase out, but like out of that. But yeah, I would give a little bit more.
Someone going for their first kind of finance job or their first interview for a financial role, what advice would you give them preparing before they went?
Research the company.
Yeah.
I think every single company would acknowledge the fact that you research them, and they do really looking out for that. Whether you know what they're doing, that's definitely advice number 1. And be honest. I think honesty. You can sense honesty very, very quickly. And I rather, for a very junior role, for somebody come to me say, listen, I've never worked. I really want to do this because, and I will work very hard. I will require a little bit more training. I think that honestly always speaks much better than trying to be nearly like cool and I know it all and I have all that degrees. I'm like, I've also have those degrees and I know you know nothing.
Yeah.
So, you know, like in terms of, you know what I mean? Like,
I've been
In terms of
no, but
work
you know what I
experience.
mean? Like, in every single job, have you ever anyone coming out of college and being able to do the actual job?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah,
it just
no,
doesn't
it
work
doesn't
like
happen,
that. So, yeah, I think the honesty, research the company and be really honest why you sitting here and why you want to work for us, because that would be the indicator for the junior position. I think senior position is slightly different. You might want to do your research of why you want to change the industry or whatever. That might be slightly different conversation, but for junior, definitely those 2.
You were speaking last week about say a higher level interviews. Did you ever have to do like a presentation, or did you ever have to do any sort of
Presentations or technical assignments or like, you know, your first 90 days in the role or solve a problem for the company during the interview stage?
No, I never had to do it.
Okay.
Never had to do it. I've heard they're the things that
Yeah.
sometimes you do. I've never
It's very
had
common
to
in
do
tech.
it.
Yeah.
I see in tech a lot. I have it.
Really?
Yeah, and then in like the procurement or whatever, supply chain, they might do like an hour or half an hour presentation on like the first 90 days in the role. But some technical assignments with some tech companies can go on for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
It's off-putting, I think.
I just what are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, as an employer,
They're trying
what
to get
are
a
you
problem solved without hiring the person. That's what's going on.
like that's like what are you trying to achieve? Maybe when you're going for like a CEO of like a 10,000 people company and you're trying to present the plan how you approach the first 60 90 days, I actually get that.
Yeah.
Is that, but like if you're doing that for technical role, I mean, like like depends. I'm just trying.
Doesn't
Yeah,
it?
why?
But even with that as well, as we spoke about culture, like I've had a few interviews in my time, and you remember the ones that are sit down, do you want a tea or coffee? Like you remember the ones that are natural and are honest and have an interest in you, and then you have ones that are just there for you to that throw odd questions at you, and
Yeah.
it's I don't know why the technique is.
I think, well, I can only speak for the IT sector, the technical interviews. We always make sure that we had technical. Now, I've never worked in recruitment there, but I think we always make sure that we had technical person in the interview.
In the interview.
Because I think 2 or 3 questions, a very short questions, will give the technical expert a very quick understanding whether that person knows what they're talking about or not.
Yes.
There's no need for 1 hour presentation. I think the technical person, the interviewer, will know very quickly whether the interviewee,
Yes.
am I right? Getting
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Knows their stuff.
Yeah.
They'll just know it. The same with accountancy. If I want to check somebody's knowledge, I'll know whether they know what they're talking about
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
just quickly switching to some sort of technical matter,
Yes.
a quick technical question, and you know whether they know.
Yeah.
So I don't know
And
whether
it doesn't
I
have
just
to be so blatant or obvious, but as you said, your stuff. And some girl saying to you, well, I've done this postgrad. Yeah, I've done it myself. I know. So even just a slight quick change of pace in interview or a quick interview question that you can see the level, then
Yeah.
you'll know straight away.
yeah.
I find like you can tell by how much detail someone goes into an interview if they're actually
Yeah.
confident at their job. It's like, can you do X? Oh yeah, I done that last week. And it's like, okay, well, what did you do? And if they can explain it clearly and
In a
concisely,
simple way,
Yeah.
actually. The
Then-
simpler you can explain it, the
Yeah.
more you understand it.
Yeah.
then okay, yeah, we're in business. But if you can't explain it or won't get into it, then it's or brush over it, then it's 50-50 at that stage, right? But yeah, that's how we know it. But do you have your quick fire
Yeah,
questions?
yeah, we do.
Oh.
I was just even going to say then, just obviously
go ahead, sorry.
outside of work and outside of the podcast, and what do you do to relax? How does Marta relax on the weekend?
Podcasts.
Marta doesn't have free time to. Do you know what I do? The one thing I do for myself, I do it religiously. I exercise. I have my 3 days: Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, and I always do it.
Okay.
I don't have free weekends because I have 2 kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love my exercises, and I think that's what keeps me sane as well. So physical activity is extremely important to me. Yeah. And then I love spending time with my kids on the weekend. Yeah. And I also like to get time to myself every so often. Like even I love good movie and good series or something like that.
Lovely. Well, it seems a bit of a tradition at this stage,
Yeah.
but
Go on.
especially for this season, we're just going to do a quick fire round
Sure.
and just a couple of little questions just to get to know you. So the first one is, what's your favourite book or podcast? And I don't think you can mention us. That'd be biased. That'd be biased.
You can say that if you want.
Do you know what? My favorite podcast. I love a lot of I love psychology. So there's a lot about self-improvement and psychology and anything like that. Your comfort zone, your fear. How do you overcome that? That would be the one kind of set of podcasts I listen to. And there is also a true crime podcast in Polish language I can recommend, but it's absolutely amazing. I always wanted to be a detective, so it's really in my blood, I think. But that's the podcast that I really
Well, any Polish listeners out there, what's the podcast?
called Piąte Nie Zabijaj.
Okay.
Perfect.
They got it.
They got it.
Yeah, they got it.
Any hidden talents?
No. Do I have any hidden talents?
Get the VAT return done in 10 minutes.
No. I'm a good cook.
Oh, lovely.
Okay.
I'm a good cook. I don't know, it's a hidden talent, but I'm a good cook.
And what cuisine is your go-to?
Do you know what? Anything that has a recipe that I can follow.
Yeah.
What I don't like is when the recipe has items that you need to buy, but like you only need a pinch of this. It costs you €10 for a jar, and you also don't know where to get the jar.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't like that. But anything that I have at home, I really like cooking. I really, really like cooking. I like housework.
Yeah.
What's
I
your
like
go-to
housework.
dish?
Probably curry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love curry with rice. Yeah.
Can you? And it's probably don't mean to be stereotypical, but I have a friend, a Polish friend, and her mother makes lovely pierogies.
Yeah, oh God, yeah,
And I
don't
love
let me start on
dumplings.
that one. I love them. I love them.
have
They're, yeah.
Dumplings, Polish dumplings.
Yeah, oh, they're so nice.
Must be lovely.
They are so nice. Love them.
What's your favourite season of the year? Winter, summer, spring, autumn?
Probably spring and winter.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So not too hot, but cool enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like winter as well. I like the Christmas period. I love the pre-Christmas period.
One word to describe yourself.
I'm hoping that one day I'll be described as brave and fearless.
Oh, that's nice.
Whether I'm there yet, I don't know, but that's what I aspire to.
That's nice. And the last one, one best piece of advice that you've either received or you've given. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind?
Many, I love a good quote, but do you know what? Many. Just do it would be one. Just do it. Just don't overthink and just do it. And the second one also would be don't take criticism from somebody you wouldn't ask for an advice from. That's a good one as well. How to kind of make sure that you know your value and just sometimes blank out, not to be in an arrogant way, but stick to your plan kind of a thing as well. So yeah, many.
Perfect. All right, thanks. Do you have anything else? Are you happy enough?
I think I should stop talking.
No, that was fantastic.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks very much for coming, Marta.
Thank
Much
you.
appreciated.